Hello everyone, I'm here for another edition of Tech Tips. I have Andrew Chatko with me today from Geode Capital. Andrew is I'm going to call it a multiple entrepreneur. There's 3 businesses that he runs throughout his group, a vast amount of experience in communicating and selling with people. I've asked Andrew to talk with us a little bit today about why questions are so important.
Well, thanks for having me, John.
You're welcome.
Yeah, well, I guess, we've all had that experience where we've, either gone into a store or met with a sales rep and frequently, we'll give them a brief idea of what it is we're looking for, and next we know we're getting hit with a lot of features and such, and often it's, they're excited about, what they feel is the best product or service in their line, and they understand it well, and that's really what they want to tell you about. So, often, we'll get a lot kind of thrown at us in terms of the features and maybe if we're lucky the benefits, but without them really knowing what is it that we really need and want and value. So, I had an interesting case in point recently where I bought a split board, which I don't know if you're familiar with.
No, what's split board?
Split board is a snowboard that you go ski touring with in the backcountry.
Oh, okay.
It splits into 2 skis for going up, and then you bolt it together basically, and it becomes a snowboard for the way down. So I guess like a lot of people, I did my homework on the internet and researched, and I had narrowed it down to a few models, but I had really, I'd reached that point where I needed to speak to someone. I had questions, I needed to understand better. You can only get so much off the internet, you also get conflicting opinions and such. So I called up 3 manufacturers, and the first manufacturer I got transferred to their snowboard expert, who was a young guy who obviously was an accomplished snowboarder, probably a previous racer or something. He was avid and enthusiastic, but he kind of just right away told me what I needed and listed all the great things and features about the board that he was excited about. And I remember at one point trying to interject and just tell him a little bit about my own kind of skill level and where I was at and what I needed. And he quickly just shifted back to the things that he loved about this board, and I don't want to say slam it down my throat, but it had a little bit of that feel. So I thanked him and ended the call, and called the second company, and it was pretty similar actually, similar type of guy, and got the features thrown at me. So I called the third company. Am I allowed to mention the name?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
So it was Jones Snowboards, for those who know them. And they patched me through to a woman, we'll call her Jenna, who, first of all, she was polite. She thanked me for the call. She asked me what it was I was calling about. And then she said, would you mind if I ask you a few questions? And I said, sure, fire away. I mean, this is exactly what I wanted, really. And she asked me about, do I currently snowboard or split board? What kind of level am I at? What do I like to do? What do I envision in terms of the terrain and snow conditions I foresee myself using the board in? Am I going to be doing a lot of climbing and ascending, icy conditions, all kinds of things, and really relevant questions. And depending on what I answered, she would often then have even a few more clarifying questions. And really what she did a good job of was determining what is it that this guy needs, and really firming that up before recommending anything. So then at that point, she recommended a model. She explained to me why she felt that would be the right one for me. And it was interesting because I had also asked, I'd seen a different model online that they carry, a more expensive one. And I asked her about that one, and she explained to me why she felt that one wouldn't be right for me. Another thing I had struggled with was what length of board to get, and it's not a big deal, but it's like getting the right size of shoe or boot, right? And so I didn't really know which size to get. She, after our discussion and all the considerations, she recommended a size for me and such. So, I got to this point where I felt, hey, we've landed on the right model. And another thing I found interesting was I had started off with a budget, and this board was almost double the price I had intended to first spend. And I don't want my wife to hear this, but yeah, I went quite a bit higher than my budget, and it was more expensive than either of the other two models that I had narrowed down to. So, but I still felt that I was going to get better value. I mean, after it, the conversation we had led me to believe that, hey, this is going to be the right board. And so I ordered the board. Went 2 weeks later. I went on a 5-day backcountry ski trip in the Monashee Mountains, and the board was perfect. It was the trip was amazing. The board was perfect. I was really thankful I hadn't got the longer length that I was deliberating about, because it definitely would have been the wrong board. So she set me up perfectly.
So she asked more questions and you spent more money.
Well, exactly, and that's what's interesting. It's one of the best things about questions is that, first of all, how else do you know what the person that you're dealing with really needs, right? And how do you, if you really want to create a happy customer and get referrals and get higher margins, that's the way to do it. They didn't have to discount their price for me. They weren't willing to, and I was happy to pay full price, and they're getting referrals out of it, right? So, so I think she achieved all her objectives with me.
No, that's great. Now, Andrew, that's a good example of a B2C sale.
Yeah.
And you figure that we should all know it, and about asking the right questions and carrying on, and not putting our own personal prejudices or our personal likes in the picture ahead of the customers.
Yeah.
Does this apply in a B2B relationship sale as well?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I have virtually no experience in retail sales personally, and I've done a lot of business-to-business sales, and still help our companies, get better and better at that. I think it works great with retail sales. It's important, but even more so with business-to-business. Especially when you're talking about larger sales transactions or more complex sales. In business we often have longer sales cycles, and you're also often trying to create or maintain clients that you want to do recurring business with over years. You have to be continually using questions and understanding what it is they need, want, and value.
So if you're presenting a solution too early in the game, you could act, even if it was the right solution, you could be sabotaging a potential sale with a customer.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think that there's a process people want to go through. So, the second thing that Jenna, the sales rep, did with me is by asking me questions is I was a participant in the process, and I was engaged. And so I was listening more actively. I was understanding her reasoning better. I think if she had just come out, had she had a crystal ball and known exactly what I needed right out of the start, even in that case, if she had just talked at me and told me this is what you need, there's a good chance I might have disengaged. Right?
So there's psychology that comes together in all of this, isn't there?
Yeah, that's really what this is based on. It's based on some fundamental human psychology, and I'm actually reading something right now about Socrates, and the Socratic method, which goes back to 450 BC, is really about using good questions to understand where people are coming from before you try to persuade them on anything. Because really, if you think about it, when someone tries to press their view on you or their opinions or an argument, you're just less likely to come around to that point of view. In fact, there's times where we'll get defensive or even antagonistic about something that might actually benefit us. And sometimes, I remember when I was younger and less experienced in sales, and you felt you knew what someone needed, and you can, like, now I'll even notice when someone's body language is getting defensive, and I'll even certain types of questions can get, if you don't ask it in the right way, if people don't think you're genuinely interested and curious, you can set people on the defensive. So we won't get into all of that today, but yeah, absolutely. The fact is, people want to go through that process with you, and it's much more powerful and effective when done that way. So. Okay.
Well, Andrew, that's great. I'm sure for everyone who is watching this, it reinforces what many of us already know, but sometimes we forget to do the basics, which is just getting down to really good questions and making sure that we're not presenting a solution until we've actually engaged with the customer and made sure that they've been part of the whole process. Thank you again, Andrew.
Thank you. I hope that helped you.